Okay, let's dive right into this because the source material we're unpacking today, it's going to fundamentally challenge how you perceive your own agency, literally the very foundation of your choices. So look at this title, The Subconscious Sabotage Code. Right off the bat, I want you to visualize something cinematic with me. Picture glowing, ethereal digital code raining down all around you. And this code represents your thoughts, your moral framework, your entire perception of reality. But watch closely because that light slowly cools, thickens, and hardens into heavy, rusted iron chains. It's a heavy image, but that is the exact psychological mechanism we are dissecting today. We're looking at what the source argues is a hidden programming of human perception, a subtle, almost invisible rewrite of the human operating system that has completely rewired our understanding of choice and consequence.
Now, this isn't just some abstract philosophical error, We're dealing with what this text describes as a subconscious code that's been operating for centuries. Centuries. It's framed as a hidden, malicious script running quietly in the background of the human mind. And I want you to feel a slight sense of destabilization here. I mean, that's kind of the point. Because the reality this text exposes is that your perception might have been quietly sabotaged before you even had the chance to form it. Crazy, right? This code's primary mission is simply to execute a massive, silent shift in human consciousness, and to do it without triggering a single internal alarm.
So here is the anatomy of that shift. We start with the original framework. Imagine a luminous, expansive universe of cosmic balance and responsibility. It's a state where the human mind is actively tasked with weighing truth. But feel the organic friction here as that massive, expansive framework is violently compressed. It gets boxed into a deterministic shadow world defined entirely as inevitable biological sin. It is, frankly, a catastrophic downgrade. The human being is dragged from the vast cosmos of cognitive responsibility all the way down into the suffocating narrow cage of biological destiny.
All right, let's move into Section 1, Victim Programming and Will Deprivation.
To really grasp how this trap was set, I want you to sit with this concept for just a second. Imagine your own agency, your actual free will, being surgically extracted from your mind, leaving you as nothing more than a passive passenger in your own life. Because that is the exact condition this code is designed to create. We see this in the specific lexical artifacts, the exact words that trigger this malware. Words like written, inevitably realized. Let's put those words under a metaphorical microscope. Written, inevitably. Visually, imagine a massive stamp of heavy iron violently branding these deterministic words directly into the soft tissue of the human mind. The moment your brain accepts that an action is inevitably realized and pre-written upon you, boom! A prison of destiny is erected. The walls of inevitability just slam shut.
So the crucial point is how this exact wording delivers its payload, because psychologically, it builds absolute determinism. It completely, 100% cancels out free will. And behaviorally, it creates a terrifying deviation. The mind actually begins to treat its own errors not as choices that can be corrected, but as a fate to be endured. You see how that works? It breeds an insidious kind of moral laziness. The individual just surrenders to the program, throwing their hands up and crying out, "I am a victim. It was written on me." This isn't an accident, guys. It is the calculated, deliberate surrender of human agency.
Which brings us to Section 2, Downsizing the Scale and Creating OCD. Now, before we look at the corruption itself, we really need to remember the original design. The source defines the scale as a cosmic mechanism for perceiving truth, weighing knowledge and separating it from falsehood. It was meant to be this massive cognitive tool for universal truth. It was designed to bathe the conceptual space of the human mind in pure intellectual clarity, requiring us to actively weigh our ideas, our ethics, and our knowledge against universal justice. But the hidden code seeks to alter this very instrument. Imagine that massive, luminous, cosmic scale of justice violently shrinking, collapsing inward upon itself until it just becomes a tiny, restrictive, suffocating set of chains binding the human body.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast. On one side, you have the true scale, expansive, cognitive, universal, completely truth-seeking. I mean, it's pure liberation. But on the other side, you have the downsized scale, imposed by the hidden code. The massive cosmic weight of truth is abruptly restricted entirely to the physical senses, the eyes, the ears, the hands. It literally forces a vast intellectual being into a claustrophobic trap of physical sensory restriction. The mind is no longer asking, "Is this true?" but instead it's obsessively policing basic biological functions.
And just look at the terrifying behavioral malfunction this downsizing creates. By shifting the focus entirely to the body, it perfectly distracts the human from ever weighing knowledge and truth. It breeds a literal obsessive-compulsive disorder regarding the physical senses. It traps humans in a continuous loop of paralyzing self-flagellation,
creating a profound psychological terror of one's own body. And ultimately, it completely disconnects the mind from the grand universality of the original message. Because let's face it, you can't balance the cosmos when you are terrified of your own shadow.
All right, Section 3, Faking Trait and Responsible Commitment. Once the individual is isolated and terrified, the code moves to dismantle how we connect with others. Imagine a beautiful network of warm, deeply interconnected human webs. The original system frames these relationships as a profound covenant and responsibility. It's a binding ethical agreement between conscious souls. But as the programmed code executes, watch those living connections freeze. Watch them shatter into cold, isolated gears turning endlessly without meaning. A breakdown of relationships is reframed as a mere mechanical, biological mistake. It strips away the entire depth of moral commitment and hollows human interaction out into inevitable mechanical errors.
And this brilliantly illustrates the chaotic fallout of that rewrite, which is just devastating. It entirely empties relationships of ethical commitment. A profound violation of trust is reduced to a mere biological glitch, something you just seek ritual forgiveness for and then move on. The individual loses the true trait or the essence of the action. The moral compass shatters, leaving total confusion. Who is actually wronged? Where did the cosmic balance break? The human being is left feeling only that they fell into a pre-written destiny, completely blind to the actual ethical damage they caused to another person.
Moving into Section 4, Systems Comparison, Balance versus Programming.
Okay, we have reached the climax of this debate. Let's look at both operating systems laid completely bare. Imagine a stark, brilliant light splitting our conceptual room perfectly in half right now. Under will, the balance system demands conscious will, while the programming system enforces deterministic force. Look at their domain. The balance is cognitive and cosmic, demanding we weigh truth, whereas the programming shrinks the domain down to the biological and sensory. Now look at the psychological state. The original system produces tranquility and uprightness, while the programming breeds relentless anxiety and inevitable guilt. And finally, responsibility. The balance system rests on total individual responsibility. The programming system, it relies entirely on blaming fate. It is the profound freedom of conscious will, contrasted directly against the anxiety-inducing prison of programmed guilt.
Here is Section 5, Poisoning Springs and Monopolizing Interpretation. So how does this program ensure you never uninstall it? Well, it creates an unconscious lock. Imagine the heavy, metallic echo of a massive steel vault door slamming shut on human perception, literally sealing the mind inside the simulation. Step 1. Hijack sacred terminology. Take the profound, original words of balance. Step 2. Force that terminology into a biological, deterministic context. Strip it of its cosmic meaning. Step 3. Permanently poison the intellectual spring of the subconscious. Let's move to the next part and see how this builds. Because by weaponizing sacred words, the malware ensures that even when you try to return to the original, liberating text, your brain misreads it through the lens of the virus.
This creates an incredibly insidious subconscious command that constantly overrides the reader's mind. It whispers, "Ignore the cosmic scale of truth. This is just an inevitable biological sin." Visually, imagine looking at glowing, golden, liberating text on a page, and suddenly, dark, aggressive shadows bleed out from the margins. They corrupt the letters, forcing your eyes to read a message of despair instead of a message of freedom. And this reveals the ultimate tragedy, the true deviation exposed by this source. The goal was always separating humans from liberating truth and imprisoning them in biological myths. Humanity has been trapped in a myth written by human hands, completely cut off from the very universal text that was originally designed to free them. They're locked in a cage built from the corrupted definitions of their own sacred words.
So why would anyone build such a system? Well, the motive is chillingly clear: to keep the human blind, to keep them constantly sinning in a state of inevitable biological failure, and most importantly, to keep them entirely dependent on a mediator. Think about it. If you are trapped in a perpetual state of inescapable pre-written sin, you will remain eternally reliant on the very interpreters and authorities who built the trap in the first place, begging them to save you from a destiny they literally coded into your mind.
Which leaves us staring into the abyss of this final, destabilizing question. Why was it so important for them to make sin an inevitable fate rather than a cognitive error? Think about that for a second. If sin is just a cognitive error on a cosmic scale, well, you can correct it yourself. You have the power. But if it's an inevitable fate, you're a slave to this system. Let that realization shatter the remaining programming. Think about the change you've been handed and ask yourself,
Are you ready to finally step back onto the true scale?